Hey, greetings, Dr. Jeffrey Scott here. This is my Market MRI Pro update for Monday, August 18th, 2025. I basically following through on the weekend discussion. Solar powers forward on a relatively quiet market day. My email address is marketmripro@gmail.com. Feel free to reach out to me with any questions, comments, or concerns. Google group is called Top Down Trader. More about that to come. If you're new to my channel, why don't you hit the subscribe button? It's free. Hit the alarm so you get notified when I do this. And we'll talk more about how you can get more information beyond that. So thanks for joining. Earnings are out. Obviously, it's 8:30. Palo Alto's up 5%. But then we had some things that were down. FN was down 8.4. XP down 2.3, lower in earnings. Some new CEOs named by CXW and ALG. They both traded up just a tad. And futures right now, which is again about a little bit after 8:30 on Monday night, are down a bit. 30 points on the Dow, 27 on the Nasdaq, 6 on the S&P, and the Russell's down 3. Markets futures were down early. The open, the markets finished mixed with the Russell showing its recent leadership. So let's take a look at the markets. As always, this is for educational purposes only. Anything I mentioned should be taken in the spirit of education, not investment advice. The intent of the video is to demonstrate the tools of top-down analysis, namely my tools and how I apply them. Trading involves risk. You are solely responsible for any decisions you make. I may own and intend to buy or sell anything I mention. Trading stocks and options should be considered um, risky and should always consult with your financial advisors. I point out that I am not a financial advisor. I am, in fact, a oncologist, a cancer doctor. I made my living giving chemotherapy, and I've got tools in multiple platforms, soon to be launching in Metastock. My Google group, I started this because emails to any group of people on a regular basis turn into spam, and then they just bounce back. And I have no interest in spamming you, sending you ads, asking for anything. But what I do like is to communicate my thoughts. And, I'm going to post this at 9 o'clock tonight or thereabouts. And a minute after I post it, I'll send a message to the Google group that it's out. So you get an active notification. You join my Google group, I'll give you a discount on my tools. And I do special mentoring and online education for the group. Who should join? Anybody that's a swing trader to position trader. If you are interested, believe in, curious about top-down trading, if you've bought my tools at any platform, see me speak live, or you're just curious, all you got to do is go to Google Groups, click all groups, look for a top-down trader, join it, tell me how you want to contact you, and it's easy to exit. So it's free, and I think you'll get good value for it. Speaking of value, I have been bad about keeping up with my annual Florida meetings. I have a business with 3,000 employees, which is why I've designed a trading style that allows me to work full time and still be effective in the market. I am going to do something. It's Sunday and Monday, October 27th and 28th at the Marriott Palm Beach Gardens. 2 packed days of education and software instruction. I'll do this back to back with John Person's meeting. It's 25th and 26th. His is at the Palm Beach Gardens Hilton Garden Inn, which is basically probably 2 miles from this hotel, if that far. Um, I did it back to back because we have a lot of shared followers, and this way they can come once and go to two conferences. Anybody that attends my meeting, I give additional rebates. So let's say you're interested in one of my tools, you get 100 off for being a member of Top Down Trader. You'll get 400 rebate towards a purchase of tools. Cost is $12.50. I feed you a lot, breakfast and lunch on Sunday and Monday. We'll do a weather permitting a cruise on my boat, Stocks and Docks, on Sunday Eve, and then on Monday night we'll see how things are going if many people are staying over. So love to have you. Right now it's a very small group, but we're having the meeting. Everything's recorded. You get a copy of the recordings and the PowerPoints, and I know a couple of people wanted to support me by doing it online, um, just to make sure that I was supported. I really appreciate that. I am holding office hours tomorrow. I'm a physician, so why not? If you look in the remarks section, you will see the link. But basically, the intent is to do a market review live, demonstrate how I do my workflow on Market MRI Pro, have a bit of an Ask Me Anything session, and then probably by the time I get done, Praveen's on the West Coast and also has a day job, but hopefully he'll be home and he can talk about what's new or what's coming new. I've got a bunch of things that we're bringing out. Once you buy the program, there's an annual update fee, probably be $4.99. I said $5.99, but I've got enough users that I can probably cover my data costs with $4.99. Anything that I add to the program that comes from me, that's part of the core program, you'll get free updates to. I am talking to some external educators, and we'll be announcing by that time our first outside educator. Many people already know who it's going to be. News and earnings. So Tuesday is housing starts and building permits. Um, Although Powell's not speaking to the weekend in Jackson Hole, apparently they're releasing his comments on Wednesday. I think that those comments will trump, no pun intended, the Federal Reserve minutes from July. I think that should give us insight. This market um, was getting tired after the rally off the April lows, and then it got a little bit new life when the CPI came in weak and maintained it despite the stronger PPI because the expectation of at least 25 basis points in September. I think it'll be very interesting to hear what Powell has to say about that. We'll be definitely moving the market. And since it's in his prepared comments, will be out Wednesday, you don't have to wait till the weekend. Tomorrow, Home Depot. God, I remember when those earnings were so important. Got Toll Brothers in the afternoon. And look at the rest of the week. You could see we still got some big earnings to come. I guess we're another week away from NVIDIA. Those will be really meaningful. You can see on Thursday we have Walmart and starting to see some solar ones. So no, it's a judgment call to hold stocks over earnings dates. It's bad judgment to not know when your stock's earnings date is scheduled. Here's the leaders index. We broke below the 50, which is sort of my it's time to get out of the market signal or consideration. But you look at what the last 2 days have done, and we're below the 50, okay? But we were up today, 1.1%. We got bottoming tails on both of these candles. I'm not ready to write off the rally. I would say this is under pressure. It's not yet definitively breaking down. So, any issues with the program? I think the bugs of any new program are something we always want to be on top of. And I think from a use perspective, the only remaining thing was that when I do the artificial indexes, um, I've had some issues there, which Praveen has already knew about and is fixing. If you're interested in the product and you want to know some pricing, I give discounts for a lot of things, especially if you bought other tools. Reach out to me at marketmripro@gmail.com and think about joining my Top Down Trader Google group. On to the charts. So, um, kind of like the weekend or the last week and what we've seen a lot lately, the Russell has been doing well. And the Russell was up 0.37, finishing above the midway of the day, although not at the high. Um, the dollar was up a quarter, and then the spider was down kind of flat, but down 0.02. Q's flat, down 0.04, and the diamond's relatively flat, down 0.11. Bitcoin was down a 0.5%, and volatility was down. So, a slow day in the market, kind of average volume, one of these Hamptons summer days. Down here in Florida, we're in our second week of school, but I was up in New York visiting my grandson this weekend, and he's not, his school is even off and he's in preschool. So they're not back yet. So perhaps a lot of the volume is sitting out in the Hamptons, and that will change on Monday when people come back just in time for NVIDIA's earnings midweek. On the new high, new lows, the number of new highs and new lows dropped on both, as did the new highs minus new lows. No signal here. It's still positive, although weaker. When we look in the S&P 500, so the 500 stocks, the leadership was discretionary, industrial, and technology. When we look at those 500 stocks, real estate was the big loser, communications, energy, materials on the bottom. The themes that were working, it was another cannabis day. It's low dollar stuff. Solar, which was what we talked about yesterday, was in second place, up on the day 4.6%. Clean tech, which includes solar, up 2.5%. Blockchain, Chinese discretionary, cloud computing, renewable energy, that has been a theme. We're all up on the day, more than 1%. And if we look over at the far right, I would say it was what I call 50-50 day. 52% of the S&P 1500 were up, 54% of the NASDAQ were up, and 53% of the NYSE were up. If we go into a timing model, no change. And you could see small pullbacks in play on the spiders, the Qs, the diamonds, and really the Russell as well. Very orderly pullbacks after several of them, everything but the Russell, set new all-time highs. My timing model, which is the red and greens, remains in a buy on each of these ETFs on the daily and on the weekly. So even though we're seeing a little bit of a pullback, my model still says to be long. And the good thing about some of these sideways days that we've been seeing is we've worked off some of the divergences, the MACD divergences in the S&P 1500, even the AD line and the Russell has started improving. So daily and weekly are still in a buy. If I look at the index ETFs, I may feel like a broken record over the weekend because there wasn't much of a change. As we could see, the spider is in a wonderful uptrend, has had a series of modest pullbacks in this uptrend, and hit an all-time intraday here, closing day the day before. It was down, really down 0.02%. Now, a red candle means a down day. An open candle means it closed above where it opened. And you could see seasonality here at best is flat. Perhaps it's trending down. Is anything broken yet? No. I've got the 50-day underneath. I've got the 17-day underneath. Actually, ignore this line. What is this line? I think that's a relative strength line. I've got the 17-day, the 50, and the 200. And what we talked about over the weekend, even a pullback down to this level, we're talking from up here a 4% to 6% pullback. I don't think that's anything horrible. And by the time it pulls back, it'll be in this range. So I think we're in the midst of a modest pullback in the setting of a big uptrend, and nothing has changed from what we talked about over the weekend. The spiders. If we look at the Qs, I can just say ditto. Small pullback. It's got the 17, the 50, and the 200 tracking underneath. Down today, 0.01. The diamonds, diamonds just set an all-time high in the market here. Not and sideways to down. And if you look at it, and this is a daily chart, it was down in the market 0.11. So really flat days. Nothing has changed our premise from the weekend when I did two videos. If we look at the Russell, again, not at all-time highs. They're all the way up here. But you had this line of resistance and we broke out. Now we're retesting. Period of sideways move. And then after a little bit of a pullback, we race higher into the end of the year. That's my expectation. Right now, it was actually up today, 0.37. And is anything broken here? No. So I feel comfortable with my thesis that the market goes higher. I would not be surprised at all. And actually, I'm probably expecting that we see a pullback before the next set of new highs, but I don't expect it to be more than a 4 to 6% pullback. But I'm not going to sell off and go short on a quiet day at all-time highs in the summer. I'm going to wait and let the market tell me what it's doing. Volatility was up 1% on a soft day, nothing big there. That was the futures. And then the dollar is still bouncing below resistance. On the commodities front, just very briefly, we can see that gold had a negative day, down a little bit. Yeah, 0.16, I think it says. Um, didn't really do much. Silver gapped open but closed just up a bit, 0.15. We could see that oil was up 0.51, but it's stuck on that 200. Natural gas is dead to me. And then I guess if I wanted to find something bothersome, as we saw the rally on rates continue. If the Fed's cutting rates, if the world is groovy and everything's wonderful, why are the rates on the long end going higher? The rates that are probably more important to our debt and more important to housing industry. A lot of the bond guys said that we don't need a cut, and if the Fed cuts, it won't be surprising for bonds to fall and the rates on the long end to paradoxically go higher. We'll have to see. Hopefully, that's not going to be the case. If we look at the buckets, we could see no signal, no reason to talk anymore. On the market breadth, NYSE on the left, the full NASDAQ composite on the right, they're both flagging off of all-time highs on the NASDAQ, not quite new highs on the NYSE. You could see here stocks above the 50 in white, 17 in green, 200s in red are in the middle of the range, even though there was a little turn up, it doesn't matter. And below you could see new high, new lows, slightly positive on both. AD lines, slightly positive on both. And the up-down volume, much stronger on the NASDAQ with no new signals except for another bango, which continues to show um, what might be considered irrational exuberance to the long side on the NASDAQ composite. I still remember these two red triangles, which is the Hindenburg omen, which first occurred on July 31st and was confirmed on August 11th. And I think that's still something that I am thinking about. But as I've said, until we break the 50, I'm not going to be going short and selling everything. Now, if we start moving closer to it on some big volume down days, I may not wait. But when I did my review going back 40, 50 years, it seemed to break the 50, and that was the beginning of the big move. So until it breaks the 50, that's how I'm going to differentiate a meaningful Hindenburg, which only occurs 1 out of 4 times, versus those that just see a shallow pullback and then it continues the move higher. On my bigger market breadth window, um, what do I see that I like? Well, look at the NASDAQ. From here to here, the NASDAQ is higher, and we were very concerned about the falling AD line despite the NASDAQ getting higher. Well, now the NASDAQ's pulling back, and maybe the AD line's increase is improving. So maybe we've worked out some of that divergence. Another thing I like is when you look at that 13-week new high, new low, it's come off the danger zone on all the indexes. So the pressure to pull back is eased. As I mentioned, when I look at the number of stocks with MACD divergence in the S&P 1500, that number came down quite a bit. So I remain where I've been. I really think we're going to have a pullback. I don't know when. I have to be aware of it, but right now my timing model says to be long, 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 and we're in a nice, orderly, shallow pullback. I think we could have fireworks coming on Wednesday, so I'm very aware of that. And by the way, I remain sitting with a lot of cash for when we get that pullback. If we can recover into the end of the year, might be a good time to pump up the return a bit. All right, from a ratio charts, upper left is Bitcoin. The rest are the S&P sectors ratio charts with the spider. And, over the weekend, we talked about solar. We talked about healthcare, specifically biotech. And you could see another strong day for XLV. Discretionary is holding up as well. Communications is holding up. Tech seems to be thinking about rolling over, but let's see how far it goes. And we're not seeing a lot out of staples, utilities, or real estate just yet. So let's now go look at stocks. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time tonight. We're already at 20 minutes. And let's just go into the top-down view. And let's look at percentage return. Now, this is when you have 3,500 stocks, excuse me, or 35 to 3,800 stocks, depending upon the day, because there's a $1 price and a filter on them, and a 100,000 share filter, and it's how many make it through. And they're all assigned industry groups and sectors. So these are not the S&P 500, and they're not my buddy Sagar SuperiorProfit.co's great tools S&P 1500. And I could look at perhaps the top three sectors, and that'll limit this to just the top um, industry groups in those top three sectors. But tonight we'll do it a little bit different. What we're going to do tonight is we're going to not look at sectors. So we're going to look at a much broader number of industry groups. And we're going to take the top 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And tonight what I'm going to do is I'm going to rank them. I'm not going to rank them first. I am going to scan them. I'm going to filter them. I've got 314. Let's filter for volume over 500, price over 5. We've been in an uptrend for a while, so I want to be above the 200. And I want them pulling back in an uptrend. Gets me down to 40. I'm going to rank these now by impulses. And let's look at the ones that had movement today. Day was one of the big movers in the market. Um, there's no way I would have been looking at this. The question is, do I look now? Notice the massive volume, an EMS signal, a CPR, gap volume breakout momentum, a PSAR reversal. This is the relative strength of the stock versus the SPY. And then I put a moving average on it. And this is impressive. So is volume. Is this a takeover? Yep. Thomas Bravo. Well, we're done with that one. Next. BitDeer. Look at this on a weekly. So this is a, I don't know if it's a Bitcoin miner is what I think it is. Nice run up. Then it sold off hard and it just seems to be making its way up. It has an EMS, a CPR, and a breakout today. It doesn't have a high jump because it must be an IPO. Yep. Let's go back to the daily. It's an interesting candle. Opened here, traded much lower, and then closed up on the day. Here's its seasonality, kind of icky with the market. And do we have fundamentals? And fundamentals, it came out with earnings today. Um, it Horrible earnings, but a big surprise on earnings. Revenue is up, surprise on revenue. I think we can find better. Next, I'm going to come back to this later, so I'll just skip it for now. NMAX, definite squeezing and a big move. What the heck is this? Crap, it's probably an IPO. Settled a high profile lawsuit. Well, it's better to settle a lawsuit than to get a new lawsuit. I guess it's better to have a settlement. I don't know enough. I might do some reading on it. That's a pretty impressive move on that news. Solar Run, Sun Run was one of the ones we talked about yesterday, continuing the solar move. PRCH, beautiful uptrend, a little bit of a flag here and a nice move up. I certainly like that pattern. It's a low cost stock. Always want to check on earnings. Earnings were August 5th. Look at these earnings. Wow. Look at this earnings per share changes. Wow. Big surprises. Revenue, less impressive. Earnings are due on November 6th. 8-cent loss compared with a 2-cent loss. That's not good. And about the same revenue. So we'll see if they have any surprises. Like the chart. I don't necessarily like those fundamentals. But boy, you can't argue about this being in a strong uptrend and a pullback ready to break out. Um, certainly looks interesting. Always good to read the transcripts. KE, Kimball Electronics, not something I was looking at. Um, I don't think we have an average daily volume. I got to put that one in. That's something that matters to me, and I don't know what the volume is. 813, decent earnings, big surprise, revenue surprise. Something's going on here. I just don't know anything about this company. Is it useful for data centers? I don't know. Do your own research. And then we'll stop here at First Solar, which is one of the ones that I picked um, this weekend. And I bought at the grade above this line, which it did at the open. So I'm pretty happy to be in First Solar here. So that's how I find things. Top down, best industry groups, best stocks. And then let me just show you what I do when I don't have time. And I go into the impulse list, which is take off my filters, which is 3,700 stocks. And I go right to my go-to scan, which is volume over 500, price over 5, 2 days of good momentum, hit OK. And there's 3 stocks. NXT. I like this one a lot. I don't know if I want to add to my solar. As I mentioned, I did buy First Solar today. And same group broke out from that trend line. Um, like it a lot. Seasonality is not as bad as others. You can see all the blue dots. And look at the power of this crossover. What this tells me is this thing is starting to accelerate its improvement and its benefit versus, or not that relative strength versus the S&P 500. So NXT, again, let's look here at earnings. Good earnings per share growth. PE is 17, projecting 98 cents, which will be versus 97. We'll see if we get a surprise. Revenue 84 versus 63. That's a nice improvement. I think next tracker looks interesting. Aura is another energy play, like this chart as well. Beautiful uptrend, pull back to the 50. Now here's where I would have wanted to buy it. Ran up, pulled back again, and broke out today on decent volume. You got a CPR, a volume, and this is the signal here. My 2 momentum dots in a row. Those that have been following me have seen that this is sort of a magic signal. And it has been one of the things that's accompanied most of my big wins this year. All you got to do is go into the news and click on anything, and you could read about what's going on. And then SHLS, I think I talked about it yesterday. This is another solar play as well, and it's pretty clear. Now this one, um, you know, is it going to give us a triple top here? I certainly wanted to take that top out before I was buying it, but this one's having a big move as well, and it's got my magic 2 dots. So have a great day in the market. What we talked about over the weekend, FSLR, big move. JKS, not such a big move, but I think it was up as well. Didn't do much, up 1/4%. And then the other ones we talked about, one of them was LABU. Failed, so that's something that might be concerning, although we did see how powerful biotech. And then the other one that I actually got filled on today, besides First Solar, is IREN. And this was my buy signal. It broke out. My stop is here. And 2054 is my buy price. My stock is at 18.95, and so that's 5 cents, $1.59 on a $20 stock. So less, right around 7.5, 8%, which more than I'd like it to be. Um, but I'll look to trail it up pretty quickly. So have a great day. We'll see you after hours tomorrow, and hopefully at my office hours. Thanks, everybody. I'll put the link for the office hours as well as a registration link for my live meeting in the remarks section below.